recording. Hopefully this will work. Okay. So I mean, the title I wrote here is, for today, I kind of keep changing the title to the stream, but just to give people an idea of what I talk about. It doesn't have to necessarily be related to the title. I wrote Universal Basic Income as a solution to most problems. So for me, that's the policy that I most support. I mean, in the sense that for me, that's really the most important sort of thing to do. And that isn't currently, I mean, obviously there's things like, like democracy, but like the most important policy that hasn't yet been implemented is universal basic income, UBI. And there's like, I mean, there's loads of advantages. It eliminates just all like, severe poverty in a very simple fashion. You don't have to like tailor, specific benefits to each specific case. You just have this, and it's just like a baseline that everybody is at least at that, So it eliminates all like genuine poverty. And then it eliminates the next major thing is that it eliminates your obligation to work to not be dirt poor, like with universal basic income. So sure, you're not going to be super rich on universal basic income, but I mean, you can get by, and like, I mean, that's the point. As the purpose of UBI is to allow people to just live off of it, and so that would be that you would be able to do that. And so as a result, if you rather just just spend all day doing like your hobbies instead of having a job, well, you can. And I think that's one mistake of like US libertarians is that, I mean, overall, I agree with lots of their policies about increasing freedom, but one of the things that they don't seem to understand is that lots of people aren't actually really free to choose how to live, because often, they're obliged to have a job, and often they don't have that many choices of like what kind of job to have, and often, they're not very well paid. And so, well, that's actually a severe restriction on freedom. And so universal basic income actually gives people a lot more freedom, because it gives them the freedom to, just do whatever they want and not necessarily have a job. So the two biggest things is it eliminates poverty, and it gives people much more freedom. The other thing is that it's actually universal basic income is completely fair. UBI is completely fair because everyone gets the same amount for the same amount of work, which in this case is zero work. See, most jobs, the idea is you earn money in exchange for your work, but often, some people might work not necessarily more than another person, but might earn a lot more because that person, for some reason, is more in demand. And so you've got this unfairness that results. And with UBI, well, you don't have any of that kind of unfairness. There are so many problems, I don't know how to catalog them at all, because I'm always thinking of not just animals and plants, but I want universal basic income, but I want universal basic people being able to live. But physically printing money has never worked as far as I've seen. Of course, no, it wouldn't be printing money. I think that is a misconception that some people have about UBI. It's about you simply take the money from everyone in taxes, but the taxes are proportional to your income. So you take an amount of money from everyone that's proportional to the income, and then you redistribute it equally to everyone. So as a result, what happens is you have a redistribution of money from richer people to poorer people. You're not creating any money. You're not printing money. You're just transferring it. So yeah, because otherwise it would lead to massive inflation, and that would not work well. So obviously you need to do it like that. So yeah, so that's the advantage. So that's another advantage is that it's really the only fair income. Like I said, like all other incomes are a bit unfair because some people will be earning more than others. And it's impossible to really determine what a fair compensation for anyone's job really would be. So, well, for UBI, we know it's fair because literally everyone is getting it for nothing. So it's the same ratio of income to work for everyone. Then there's, for instance, well, the fact, like I said, that it simplifies, because like there's this whole like benefits system currently, and often, there are often lots of different like modalities and stuff. You've got like, unemployment benefits, and you've also got like, for instance, disability benefits. and then the government like has to check whether a person really deserves those benefits. You say take the money. I do agree that taxes and benefits should be means tested, but then I don't know how to means test it. I don't know about modalities. What are those? So what I'm saying is that shouldn't be means tested. UBI is not means tested. You give it to everyone, and precisely to avoid this thorny issue of means testing. And see, another problem with the typical means tested benefits is that basically you get the benefits if you're poor, but then if and in particular if you're unemployed, then you start getting a job and suddenly your benefits get taken away. So that's kind of a disincentive to start having a job. Whereas with UBI, well, you get to keep the UBI. So if you have a job, well, the money that you get from your job will be on top of the UBI. And another good thing about UBI is precisely since you can always fall back on the UBI, well, you already don't have the stress anymore. Even if you decide to keep working, well, people now they're often stressed out about like what happens if suddenly I get fired and I can't find another job. And there, well, at least you're always going to fall back on the UBI. So I think that provides a lot of reassurance to people. And of course, because people can fall back on the UBI, what would happen is also like low-skilled jobs that are currently poorly paid, well, they would have to be paid more because otherwise nobody would be willing to do it. So it would actually ensure that salaries become more fair and that jobs that are actually quite labor intensive, but that pretty much anyone can do, and as a result who currently have low prices because of a high supply of workers. And I mean, thanks to the UBI, well, lots of people would just be like, oh, I'm not going to do it if you're not going to pay me more. And so it would actually kind of be similar to imposing a minimum wage for those kinds of jobs. It would happen much more organically. Another positive aspect is that it enables like people who are dependent on other people, like, and which can lead to like abusive relationships because you're economically dependent on another person. Well, with UBI you can just leave, right? And so that's another major advantage. um, so yeah, as you can see, there's really lots and lots of advantages of UBI, and there really isn't any downside. I mean, the only downside is that people will be slightly less motivated to work. But as far as we can see, it doesn't seem like it would change all that drastically. So I think all in all, it would be definitely worth it. I'm reading, I've often seen rich people allegedly end themselves. Organically is a term I agree with. The last streamer I watched does not seem to mean much. Okay, I'm not sure what you mean by the last streamer I watched. Organically is a term I agree with. The last streamer I watched does not seem to mean much. I guess, yeah. Organically, in this sense, it means I don't know what you mean by you've often seen rich people allegedly end themselves. What, like, are you implying something beyond that? Like, is there something that should be, is there some particular policy that should be, implemented or not implemented due to that? Or organically in this case simply means that it happens without any government interference, basically. What I mean is basically in a market mechanism. So see, because like a minimum wage, well, you're like imposing it through the government, whereas organically, the idea is that it's just in a free market environment where the employer and employee agree to on a certain price. And so that's what I meant by organically, is in a free market fashion, basically. That's what you don't know what a market mechanism is? I'm not sure quite how to explain it. It's like literally, I mean, do you know about the concept of a free market? It's like basically, there's like I don't know if you've seen this graph where you've got like the supply curve and the demand curve, and where they both meet, they'll end up setting your price of a certain good. And so it's just what happens when you've got people, I mean, a lot of people that are both buying things and selling things, and they're able to do so in a free fashion. But of course, they're not allowed to like actually steal or to like coerce people into doing things. And it's very useful. The free market is very useful because it allows it allows prices to be, to be adequate and to be fair, and it basically makes production a lot more efficient. It makes distribution of the production a lot more efficient. It allows production to really follow the demand of the consumer. So yeah, the Laffer curve, yeah, that's regarding taxation. That's another issue. That's the maximum. I mean, that is the amount of income that you can obtain from taxation as a function of your percentage of taxation. So yeah, so that's what I mean anyway. Is when I said organically, what I meant is that it happens just as an agreement between private buyers and sellers, as opposed to a fixed number by the government, fixed like price or salary in this case by the government. So again, I am definitely pro free market, but so my conception is that unfortunately the free market doesn't actually necessarily adequately reward people for their work. And so basic income addresses a lot of the issues of excessively unfairly low paid jobs. And then there's the issue of unfairly high paid jobs. And so and basically what I mean is that what you pay as a spender on the free market, the prices are fair, but as a person who makes money from the market, that the market there is actually not fair. So what I suggest is you retain the free market, you retain like freedom of employers to like choose what prices, what wage they want to set, and but what you do is you implement a basic income, and then you also implement a maximum income with the idea that it's simply income should basically reflect your work, right? If somebody's willing to do a certain amount of work for a certain amount of money, well, then you shouldn't give that person more money than that. And so the idea is that lots of people make way more money than what would actually be required to motivate them to do that work. And so the idea is you bring them down, but instead of having like some complicated system that determines specifically what each person should earn, well, instead you retain the free market system for the sake of simplicity, but you apply a cap on income. Have you heard the saying, life's just not fair? Yeah, of course, it isn't fair, but you try to maximize fairness as much as possible without sacrificing, efficiency too much. So like I said, I favor a basic income and a maximum income. Because fairness why maximize fairness? Because fairness is a fundamental ethical value. It's literally like it's an axiomatic, like it's an inherently good thing. So as a result, we should always be trying to maximize fairness if it doesn't come at the expense of overall well-being. So like if you could create more fairness, but just by making everyone equally unhappy, then that would not be something that you should do, right? You should also maximize people's well-being. So that's another value, is beneficence. But fairness is also of course fairness is, you're not sure fairness is inherently good? It's like, how's fairness not inherently good? Okay, and Euro Explorer says, okay, I think I understand now. People are going to pay people more are on average going to get wrecked again because they're the people that grew up being spit upon. I'm not sure what you mean by that. Actually, I'm trying to understand. People are going to pay people more are on average going to get wrecked again. I'm not so much saying that like people, that poor people are rich, like poor people are poor because they pay others more. I mean, the point is more that rich people get payments from lots of different people. That's more like how it works. And it's just because they happen to end up in these positions where they're able to get the payments from lots of different people. So that's kind of the reasoning here. And basically they end up being unfairly in this position of privilege. And so you maximize fairness by having a basic income and a maximum income. And so the ratio I propose is 1 to 10. So the maximum income would be 10 times the basic income. Angler chain, isn't that why we say life isn't fair? Not everyone can be happy. Yeah, but to some extent is because like genetically, some people are born like, stronger or smarter and all that. And yeah, obviously, and also like maybe with a nicer or less nice family, stuff like that. So it's just about accepting that, right? Because it'll make you happier. But the thing is that to a large extent, it also ends up it's a kind of problematic mindset to keep repeating this life isn't fair, because it ends up making people believe that fairness can't be, unfairness can't be eliminated, that fairness isn't achievable. And that's actually not true. It's that up until now, life has been very unfair, in part just due to like biology, and in part also um, due to unfair economic systems that like genuinely could have been much fairer, and that was really just the result of selfishness of the people in power. And as a result, unfortunately, that attitude of life isn't fair ends up bolstering a harmful and unfair status quo. So I don't. It's not life that's unfair. It's currently people's experiences are unfair, but that can be changed. That can be changed because we can create an economic system which is much fairer. In the long term, we can make it even more fair if you just have absolutely everyone on basic income, because all production is automated. So you'd have complete economic fairness. And then biologically, well, you could, I'm a proponent of like genetic engineering for people to like eliminate diseases and like aging and that kind of thing. And so you could also eliminate, that kind of unfairness where some people are like healthier than others, for instance. So unfairness definitely can be eliminated. EO explorers, never seen a fairness definition that wasn't just a prompt to go into gigantic legitimate conversations. Okay. Fairness is it's also called equity. Equity is another definition. I mean, equity also like means like capital, but equity in the sense of fairness is like a synonym of fairness. And basically, it just means it's similar to equality, except that it's adjusted for the merit of a person. So like the idea of equality would be like giving everybody exactly the same amount of money. Fairness would be like if somebody works harder, then you give that person more money back. So in a way, you could say that fairness or equity is like merit adjusted equality. So that's the way I would see it, and I think that's the way most people would see it. Yeah, Air Explorer says one of the many ways to launder at least $500,000, but often much more, is through the buying a coin called piece of art. Well, the thing is that art tends to like gain in value a lot over time, because it's often quite rare. So yeah, that is something that can happen. Like I said, I also, well, I didn't say it yet today, but I favor a cap on wealth. So which would be at 100 times the cap on maximum income. So obviously, if you ended up having too much wealth, you'd have to let go of some of it. You say, I think fairness is overrated. No, like AngleChain, why do you say fairness is overrated? It's like it's like one of our fundamental values. Like literally, it's like one of the very few fundamental values for like that everyone I think would logically believe in. Jordan Peterson, UBI socialism. No, it isn't. Socialism is about the government controlling economic production in practice, even though socialists will say no, it's about workers owning the means of production. But in practice, what that amounts to is the government actually owning the means of production and sort of deciding, what gets done and like fixing prices and that kind of thing. UBI is not that because there's still free enterprise, private enterprise, free markets. It's not socialism. Euro Explorers, production completely automated equals I'm even more useless to by then trillionaires. No, because like I said, you got a maximum income, so there's no trillionaires. There's not even any billionaires, not even any 100 millionaires, because you've got the maximum income. So you only have like low millionaires. So that's not a problem, and that way it'll just be free. I mean, why would you like on purpose choose to be forced to work when you could be free to have just machines do the work for you. AngloChain, why should I seek fairness? How does that benefit me from already doing well in life? Because it benefits other people. And like literally, if you don't seek fairness, other people logically would recognize that that is wrong, and they would seek fairness. Because I'm not saying from your individual perspective, you have to see it from the perspective of everyone. And if you just as an outside observer, it's very evident that fairness is something desirable. But again, because it's an axiomatic good, it's an axiomatic value, there's not any way to like explain it beyond that. Like you have to just accept it. That's what axiomatic means, is that it doesn't derive from a more fundamental value. Fairness is just a good in and of itself, and like if you don't see it, there's not really any way for me to argue for it, because it's axiomatic, so you can't argue, you just have to accept it. Jordan Peterson, so capitalists would be poor with fairness because they don't work hard. I don't understand what you mean by that. I don't. Oh, you mean, oh yeah, no, I understand what you mean. Yeah, they definitely would be poor. But like I said, we can't have complete fairness because it would be it's not in fact possible to properly determine what exact fairness is. So instead we just rein in the unfairness. Instead of trying to achieve perfect fairness, we rein in and because like socialism basically was about trying to achieve perfect fairness, and actually what you had is that it's just a system that worked poorly for everyone. So that is not desirable. So instead you retain an economic system that is overall functional, that works well, but that is unfortunately tends to be unfair. So what you do is you keep that system, but you limit the unfairness by kind of on both sides, at the bottom end with the basic income and at the top end with the maximum income. And so that's the way to do it. That's the way to do it. Yes, in my system, ideally with pure fairness, yes, capitalists would actually be very poor because they actually don't really do much. And I think lots of people would still, be able to just invest in stuff, and they would, even if they then could earn a lot less back. But obviously investments are super important for the economy. So you've got to ensure that that still happens. Now, lots of people say like a maximum income will no longer make, nobody will want to invest anymore. I'm not so certain that's true because, well, I also advocate for 0% corporate tax. So you can definitely just set up a business, you'll have no tax on that. And so you can invest as much as you want in that, and then your company will make money from that, and then you can pay yourself a salary from that. And if you reach the income cap, because your company is really successful, you can also pay other, like members of your family through a corporation. Then, of course, I believe that, all corporations beyond a certain size should go public so that there isn't just a single person who has like full ownership of it. Again, just to limit excessive, people acquiring excessive power and influence. But again, then the company would just be functioning as any, company, like a corporation. Corporations right now, they function without just a single owner. And so it wouldn't really change much in practice, I think. I don't see why we need to have, why we need to let people earn indefinitely much for the economy to function. It seems to me like investment would occur to a large extent with an income and wealth cap. Here explores, lol, you have the opposite definition of equity and equality from the rulers. Mission accomplished from them. I'm not sure. How do I have the opposite definition of equity and equality from the rulers? I don't think I don't really see it like that. Like if you can explain, because for me, I'll explain to you. So tell me how you think the rulers quote say it. Okay. Okay, boomer. AngloChain, you say fairness is fundamental value, but so is competition. Competition is not a fundamental value. Competition has value only in as much as it is fair, and also especially as it generates well-being through maximization of wealth. See, the value of competition is that I presume you're talking about competition in the context of a market, which it very much has value, but it's not, unlike fairness, competition is not a fundamental value. Rather, it derives from the fact that competition is what enables the economy to be productive, because competition, it basically fosters the development of greater productivity and greater efficiency and all that, and so it's of value in as much as it maximizes well-being through the maximization of wealth. So the logic is basically the fundamental value is maximization of well-being, and so one of the ways to achieve that is through maximization of wealth, and one of the ways to achieve that maximization of wealth is through competition. So that's the logic there. So there I can actually explain why competition is good, whereas fairness I cannot, because fairness is fundamental, whereas competition is not fundamental. Jordan Peterson says you're describing state capitalism like what China currently is. No, not at all. State capitalism is where the companies are actually owned by they function in a free market kind of system, but they're then kind of ultimately owned by the government, even though it's a market system. It's basically as if the government acquired Google and AT&T and all that, but then still ran them like a private company. That's state capitalism, which is not what I'm suggesting. So it's not state capitalism. Hero explores Hunter Biden is a sexual abuser who just got $500,000 for a piece of art, and messages went out about the art buyer would remain nameless, even though before the first James Bond movie, North by Northwest attempted to reveal the bribe by art buy and worse game. I haven't actually even been following the Hunter Biden thing much, so I don't think I'm really informed enough to be able to comment on on that whole issue. I'm not even sure what you mean by the Dr. No and North by Northwest. So you're saying North by Northwest attempted to reveal the bribe by art by and worse. So I guess what you're trying to say, yeah, is okay. So you're trying to say that it's like people get in kind donations instead of just monetary donations, and so that doesn't count as official bribery. I suppose that's what you're getting at, and I agree that's a problem. Well, I believe, again, I believe in taxing income, including in-kind income, not just cash, but things like art. So, and again, you'd have a limit on what you could acquire. And well, of course, because of the limit, it would actually bring the prices of art way down, because simply it wouldn't be possible for anyone to be able to pay more than a certain price. So yeah. It fails. Okay, Anglo-Chain. No one helped me when I was struggling, so why should I help them? Saying it's good doesn't explain why it's good. I don't have to accept it as you say because I disagree. Because it's not about past. It's about creating a new system which is now fair. Okay, perhaps there's been unfairness in the past. The whole point is that was a mistake, and now you're rectifying it. Again, it is a fundamental value, and it's not. If you disagree with it, there's nothing more I can say. Because how can you not believe in fairness? It's literally a fundamental principle of civilization, and especially our modern societies, modern democratic egalitarian societies, or equitable societies precisely. It's if you don't believe in fairness, you literally I don't know, you literally belong in some ancient sort of highly hierarchical unfair society. Well, basically a society with slavery, which is just completely terrible. But again, there's no it's a fundamental value. It's a fundamental value. You're saying no one helped me when I was struggling, so why should I help them? Again, that would actually be unfair if you are required specifically to help people when nobody was helping you. But the point is that in a fair system, you would be helped when you're struggling. See, that's the whole point, is it's about creating a system where you are going to be helped when you're struggling, right? That's the idea. So forget about what's happened in the past, and until now the system has been unfair. So I mean, that would be ridiculous to reject the creation of a poor system just because up until now it was unfair. And so as a result, you'll be subjected to the moderate unfairness of having lived under an unfair system, and then you like losing a bit of money or something because of the implementation of a more fair system. But that's obviously silly, and obviously it's just going to create a lot more unfairness in the long run and a lot more suffering. Jordan Peterson, you're literally just a conservative stereotype of I got mine, so fuck 'em. Yeah, like literally, it's not a defensible position. It's saying like I've got slaves. Why should I care about, you know, why should I care about freeing people? Why should I oppose slavery since I have slaves and I benefit from having slaves? There's it's not like a good it's not ethically defensible. You say Jordan Peterson, the point is if he can't articulate why fairness is a moral good worth striving for, why should I listen to him? I can't articulate because it's an axiomatic principle. It's axiom. Look at there's like these ideas of in math. I think there's like Pythagoras. He had his 5 axiomatic principles in math, and you like had to accept them. And there because other math like things could be demonstrated, but they all sort of originated from these axiomatic principles, and there is no way of explaining it. If you can't see it, there's no like I explained why competition is good because it's not a fundamentally good value, whereas fairness is fundamentally good. And again, if you can't see it, then there's nothing I can do. So the only thing I can do is just keep repeating it until you believe it. Basically, there's nothing. The thing what I can do is maybe explain to you that obviously if you weren't helped when you're struggling, but then you're required to help others who are struggling, that is not fairness, okay? But it's just a slight unfairness you have to accept when implementing a fair system and replacing an unfair system with a fair system. You're going to have a few people who like, they struggled under the unfair system, then they got rich under that same unfair system, and now you're taking that richness away. But I think what I want you to realize is that probably if you're doing well now, will you still be among the people who do better overall in my fairer system? So as such, you're still gonna be better off than most people. So you still will have yours, right? And the whole point, of course, is this basic income means that everyone can do all right, at least, right? So the point is like you're not supposed to be feeling like you're struggling on the basic income. So nobody would really be struggling at that point. Jordan Peterson, you should care about other people beyond yourself. Yes, thank you. That's just again, that's a fundamental good. Is like the idea of beneficence for everyone, universal beneficence, omnibeneficence. He just says it's axiomatic, so you have to accept it. He doesn't have a moral argument. No, it's literally my argument is that this is one of the fundamental pillars of morality. That's what I'm saying. It's one of the fundamental pillars of morality. If you don't accept that, you don't agree on. We have a completely different idea of morality. And like literally, what you call good would be bad for me, and vice versa. What I call bad would be good, and Air Explorers, to achieve a better system, we'd all have to become better, I feel, or the better of us would have to help better. Yeah, most people are idiots, and I want to help people become less idiots, help people acquire more wisdom. Jordan Peterson, and you have an immoral argument. I agree. Jordan Peterson, I'm literally just asking questions. I still find it. I mean, I see what you. I thank you for asking questions, and I think it's very good to ask questions. But again, like I said, there simply is no explanation for fairness precisely because it is a fundamental principle, fundamental ethical principle. One of the very few fundamental ethical principles. Most other principles I can explain it, but then it all boil back down to fairness and like a couple of other fundamental principles. Jordan Peterson says, you said you disagree with helping people, so yeah. Angela Chain, did I? Yeah. Yes, you did. Well, you said that you disagreed with helping people if they didn't help you. But again, I'm not really suggesting that. I mean, I'm inviting you to not think about just the moment of implementation and what happens just upon when you shift from an unfair system to a fair system, but more what happened in the long run under a fair system. And in the long run under a fair system, well, everybody gets helped out by everyone else, and everyone else helps out everyone else. And so you don't have that issue of having to help people when they didn't help you. That would no longer be the case. Um, okay, Sumer. Air Explorers, you said a lot more after. If you have a text version of all this, I want to read it. I have no power, so I can't do anything upon this info, but I'm curious, and maybe someday, who knows. I've got a few things I've written up, but it's not really great, and I haven't posted it anywhere so far. What I've got is my videos on my YouTube channel. There's normally you should see the link to my YouTube channel in my Twitch description, and if you go in the category of my videos called Fundamental Concepts, you'll see especially there's one video that I made an hour long called "No One Need Be Poor," where I explain the basis of my economic policy. So if you're interested in that, I would invite you to go there. That's the best I have. So you could definitely do that. Obviously, I'd like to start a website, but for now, I don't have the skills to do that. Maybe I'll like post stuff on like Medium or something, but at this point, I just I first think I need to get a bit of an audience. Jordan Peterson, at least time based. Yeah. AngloChain. At Jordan Peterson, if you can't find the roots of your beliefs and ideas, you're based in nothing but your own confusion. Yeah, I think I agree with AngloChain. It's very important to know to have a solid philosophical foundation. But the point is, fundamentally all philosophies have some axiomatic beliefs, and fairness is one of them. For me and for lots of people, for many modern people, Enlightenment quote values. It's fairness and beneficence for everyone, like utilitarianism, and also freedom. Those are like the three fundamental values. You don't know what base means, and it means you said something going against the status quo next. No, it doesn't mean that. I'm not confused though. Overall, I'm siding with Jordan Peterson. Jordan Peterson definitely seems a lot wiser than Mr. Jordan Peterson. At the Nathan L., you're not informed because hegemons block discourse about John of God, Jerry Sandusky, Eric Gill, and even Jimmy Savile. I'm sorry to say I don't understand what you're talking about. AngloChain at Jordan Peterson, sure. ER Explorers, how can you not believe in fairness? How can you feel so dominant to dare define fairness? Are you referring that to me? The fairness is, are you really saying that, how am I being dominant in defining fairness? Fairness is pretty well, has an accepted meaning, like it's like saying, how can you feel so dominant to like define an orange? Like an orange is a fruit. I'm not defining it. It's like we agree collectively that there's a certain meaning to it. King Clan X says, what do you think about the KKK group? They're terrible racists, murderers. Jordan Peterson, Cope at Your Explorers. Jordan Peterson, conservative, wants everyone to suffer like they did. They're bitter. Yeah, or even suffer like they didn't. Like literally, conservatism is just sadism, essentially. It's just about enjoying making people suffer. Air Explorers, equating fairness with merely not enslaving is new to me. No, I didn't equate fairness to merely not enslaving. I'm just saying that slavery is an extreme example of unfairness. And I'm saying that the kind of, the kind of severe unfairness that AngloChain seems to be defending is pretty much the kind of unfairness that, the kind of ideology that you had in a slaver society, but that is absent in our modern societies, even though they are quite unfair. But AngloChain wants even more unfairness than that. That's what I'm saying. AR Explorers at Jordan Peterson, maybe if you have the same definition of conservatives that I do. Yeah, Jordan Peterson, you stretch the definition to make yourself feel comfortable at AR Explorers. I have a hard time sort of figuring out what AR Explorers are. I'm not saying or like or I don't know how to pronounce, but anyway, EOR Explorers. I have a hard time figuring out what AR Explorers' position is, like what his ideology or her ideology is. Anglo-Chain, of course competition is fundamentally good. It's the only reason human beings are alive today. No, it's not fundamentally good. Like, how, it's not a fundamental ethical good. The reason, again, you're saying, precisely, you're justifying it. If you're justifying it, that means it's not a fundamental good. You're justifying by saying that it's the reason humans are alive today. So you're from that perspective, because you're justifying, then the more fundamental good is actually having humans be alive, which largely could be construed as the principle of beneficence, of maximizing well-being. So basically, you're actually justifying competition in the very same way that I did. You're basing it on maximizing well-being. So you don't even realize it, but you actually agree with me that it's not a fundamentally good thing. What if competition just made people suffer? Then it wouldn't be fundamentally good, right? So that is why competition does sometimes make people suffer. Competition has also led to all sorts of horrible wars, right? When there's like tribalistic competition that made people suffer. So competition is not fundamentally good. AR Explorers, Jordan Peterson says, at Jordan Peterson, I don't feel comfy. If you feel comfy, why? I don't understand what you're getting at. Jordan Peterson says, which it's not fair to call them conservatives, they're regressives. Yeah, I agree, I call them regressives. I also call them like just orcs, basically, because like more or less the kind of society they would want is sort of similar to what I imagine orc society would be like in The Lord of the Rings. Yeah, Vermin Supreme 2024. Anglo-Chain, why I call good is probably different, but what's important is I can explain why I've come to that decision. I don't think you can explain it. I think you think you can. ER Explorers at Anglo-Chain, only reason alive today. That's really complicated when most of us could have been legally murdered to no media attention. Is there any explanation for this fairness? I have a hard time. Peterson, why are you coping about Air Explorers? Air Explorers, I think you're speaking really well, gone a long way from. Okay. Jordan Peterson, it's impossible for the media to focus on literally every murder that happens, especially since dozens are killed in shithole USA every single day. Yeah. Air Explorers says, send me all the money if I don't need to be poor. Wait, I'm probably not yet, but anyone let me know what that should mean. Like, I'm literally saying that loads of people are poor and you could just solve it through basic income. Jordan Peterson, you're poor and still sucking boots. Air Explorers. Jordan Peterson, sad. Okay. Air Explorers said, Jordan Peterson, you're poor and still sucking boots. At the Nathan L, I spilled some things, but even if at the Nathan L is wearing boots, I'm not sucking them. Air Explorers, sorry. Okay, and I think everybody's gone now, so I've just, okay, I'll record this.